In the third year of my marriage to Oliver, he made sure that everyone hid the fact that he had a younger and more beautiful woman outside our home. Everyone around me would say, "You're his first love," his weakness. But when he was drunk, he would laugh and say, "Laura, once you marry her, you realize she's just ordinary." The man who at 17 swore he would love me for life now held another young woman in his arms and whispered to her, "She's so boring. Of course I love you more, darling." The day I left, no one noticed anything unusual. The maid smiled and asked if I was going out for tea or shopping. I smiled back slightly and replied, "There's no need to prepare dinner tonight. When I hear that his heart belongs to another, I destroy it with fire. I burn it to ashes and let the wind scatter them." Oliver never knew that the so-called ordinary Laura was a stubborn woman. In my dictionary, the word forgive simply didn't exist. I wore my coat, with liver care pills tucked inside my purse. The hallway was long, lights reflecting off the paintings, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. Shadows scattered across the floor. From the room at the end of the hall, laughter grew louder. Oliver had reserved this entire floor for years. No one was allowed near, so they hadn't even bothered to close the door. My heel caught on the plush carpet and I stumbled slightly. As I bent down, the necklace around my neck suddenly snapped. Large and small pearls scattered across the floor. A strange pain pierced my heart. I was about to kneel to pick up the pearls when I heard Oliver's voice. "Come on, I'm not as fickle as you think. My first love, my white moon, the love of my life is none other than my wife." He was probably drunk, his voice tinged with intoxication, full of pride and satisfaction. I couldn't help but press my lips together. Holding the cold pearls in my hand, my heart felt oddly relieved. But unfortunately, Oliver suddenly sighed. "Once you marry her, you realize she's just ordinary." I clenched my hand. The pearls dug painfully into my palm, and the smile froze on my lips. "And what about me, Oliver?" A soft female voice suddenly rang out, filled with grievance and resentment. "You say your wife is the love of your life, but what am I to you? Last night, you said you loved me more." The men burst into laughter. "Silly girl, do you really believe what a man says in bed? Besides, it's normal for a man to love his wife. Why are you competing? You're just the mistress." "Oliver, look at them." The girl's voice broke into tears. It sounded so fragile and pitiful that it could move anyone. "That's enough. Why are you teasing her?" someone said. "Teasing? Isn't she just the mistress?" "She's my official girlfriend, so watch what you say," Oliver replied in a low tone, sounding somewhat annoyed. "Are you serious, man?"
"Yeah.
"She's been with me since she was 18. I have to be responsible." "Beast, you took advantage of her the moment she came of age. Aren't you afraid your wife will make a scene?" Oliver laughed. "She depends on me. What could she possibly fight me with? But enough, keep it down. I love my wife and don't want her to feel bad." "You love your wife. Then what about me?" the young woman pouted, unwilling to let the matter go. Oliver pulled her into his arms, comforting her. "Is it worth crying over something so trivial?" The girl sobbed, her voice sweet and sticky. "Oliver, I want you to say that you love me more than anyone, even if it's a lie. I'd be happy." "All right, darling. She's so boring. Of course, I love you more." I stood in the shadows outside the door and suddenly smiled. The man who once vowed to love me forever now comforted a younger girl. But I didn't even feel like confronting him. Once unfaithful, forever untrustworthy. I turned around and walked back down the same long hallway. The 17-year-old Oliver had once secretly carved my name into his desk, saying, "Oliver loves Laura and will love her forever." But his forever only lasted these fleeting 10 years. That morning, when Oliver returned, I was already downstairs having breakfast. He rushed in with a large bouquet of flowers and a gift in his arms, his face full of guilt and remorse. "I'm sorry, darling. Last night the meeting ran late, and I couldn't come home. When we got married, he promised that no matter how busy he was, he would never spend the night away. But over the past 6 months, he had been coming home later and later. And this time, he didn't come home at all." I put down my chopsticks and looked at him. His suit, shirt, and tie had all been changed. His scent was clean and fresh. He had gone to great lengths to cover his tracks. He placed the bouquet on the table, walked over, and tried to kiss me. Darling, I swear this was the first and last time. I raised my hand to stop him and asked, word by word, did you stay at the office last night? Oliver didn't hesitate for a second. Yes, look, I even changed into the clothes you prepared for me. As he spoke, he held my shoulders and looked at me cautiously. Darling, are you upset? I'll spend the whole day with you today. I won't go to the office, all right? I looked at him, seeing my reflection in his pupils. His gaze was steady, no hesitation, no trace of guilt. And I, too, could hide my sadness completely.
No.
I pushed his hands away. Let's eat first. But as soon as he sat down, his phone rang. I saw him frown and hang up. Yet it rang again almost immediately. He hesitated for a few seconds before declining the call once more. Then a message arrived. Oliver checked it, and his expression tightened. Laura, something urgent came up at the office. Go ahead. No, it's fine. I'll have someone else handle it. I promise to spend the whole day with you. He said this, but his face betrayed his unease. It's okay. Work is more important. Just go. I looked at him calmly, my pain already numb and indifferent. Oliver hesitated only for a moment before getting up. I'll try to come back as soon as possible. I nodded with a soft watching him leave hurriedly and get into his car. Only after he was gone did I realize that the tears on my face had already grown cold. I called my best friend. Roma, can you help me book a medical checkup at your hospital today? When the results of my medical checkup came out, I let out a sigh of relief. My body was still clean. And I wasn't pregnant. When I married Oliver, my health wasn't very good. That's why we never had children. But to be sure, I had a thorough examination. Doctor, I'd like to know how is my recovery? When I received a positive answer, a huge weight lifted from my heart. Holding the report, I walked out. As I turned the corner of the hallway, I heard Oliver's name. Oliver, if I'm really pregnant, can I keep the baby? I stopped and looked at the two figures not far ahead. Oliver held a cigarette between his fingers, his brows furrowed in impatience. The young woman had a bare face, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clung to his sleeve, pleading and shaking him. Oliver let out a cold laugh. My wife hasn't even had a child yet. What makes you think you'd take priority? But this is my first baby. I can't bear to lose it. I promise I'll behave. I won't cause any trouble. And I'll make sure your wife never finds out about me or the baby. Oliver patted her cheek with the hand holding his cigarette. Don't be naive, darling. I'm not letting you have the child. Be good. Get the abortion, and I'll buy you a house. But if you don't, Zoe, let me be clear. There are plenty of pretty and obedient girls at your university. I could sleep with a different one every day without a problem. You're not irreplaceable. The girl froze at his words, her face pale and tear-streaked. I'll listen, Oliver. Please don't leave me. Good girl. Go for the checkup, all right? I will, but Oliver, you once told me that your wife's health was poor and she couldn't have children. If I'm really pregnant, couldn't you let her raise the baby as her own? I won't fight or cause trouble. Would that be okay? Oliver stayed silent for a moment. Go for the checkup first. We'll talk later. The girl sobbed and went inside. Oliver finished his cigarette and put it out. When he turned around, I pretended I had just arrived. When he saw me, he looked surprised for a moment, but quickly shifted to an expression of concern and care. Darling, what are you doing at the hospital? Are you feeling unwell? Are you hurt? Oliver grabbed my arm, looking utterly concerned. Why didn't you call me? Coming to the hospital alone, he looked me up and down, his eyes filled with anxious worry, as if in these 10 years, his love for me had never diminished in the slightest. But my hands and feet grew cold, the chill seeping into my bones. How could Oliver act with such affection? When he called me darling, with such devotion, his mistress was just a few meters away in another room, taking a pregnancy test. And yet he could stand before me without the slightest crack in his facade. It was to the point where I couldn't even tell anymore who was the real Oliver. I'm fine, I said. I just came to visit a friend. He let out a deep breath and pulled me into a tight embrace. You really scared me, darling. Oliver, do you really care about me? I asked softly, looking up at him. How could I not care? He hugged me even tighter. When we got married, remember how poor your health was? I spent 3 years taking care of you until you recovered. Darling, do you know that seeing you here almost scared the life out of me? If anything happened to you, how could I go on living? I wanted to laugh, but the corners of my mouth were stiff. My lips trembled uncontrollably, as if I had swallowed a spoonful of boiling oil. I asked, "Then why are you here at the hospital?" His grip on my arm tightened slightly. "Oh, I came to visit an elderly relative. They're hospitalized, but this was the obstetrics and gynecology department." Still, I didn't expose his lie. On the way home, Oliver's phone wouldn't stop ringing. He simply turned it off. "Even if the King of Heaven calls, I'm staying home with you today." I said nothing, only watching the scenes outside the car window as they passed. The road home took us past our old high school. One familiar scene after another, once so sweet, now felt like honey-coated blades piercing my heart. My vision blurred for a moment, and in that mist, I seemed to see Oliver and me in the past. "Laura, please don't be mad, okay? I beg you, just listen to me, just one thing." "All right, one thing." "Two things then, just two, okay?" Young Oliver would tug at my sleeve with a mischievous smile, refusing to let go. "Go away, Oliver. Don't cry, Laura. Hit me if you want, hit me as hard as you can, but please don't cry, all right?" The phone in my bag vibrated suddenly, pulling me out of my thoughts and back to reality. I pulled it out. The message was from an unknown number. "He says your health is poor and that you can never satisfy him. 3 years of marriage and you've never changed positions. He's sick of it. He doesn't like using protection and told me that if I get pregnant, I should keep the baby. After all, you can't even get pregnant. You're worthless. Why do you keep clinging to him?" I laughed suddenly. Oliver looked at me curiously. "Darling, what's so funny?" I locked the screen and replied calmly, "My best friend just reminded me about our tea date. I completely forgot, and now she's scolding me." Oliver immediately relaxed. "So, are you going?" "Of course. Otherwise, Roma won't forgive me for 3 days. You should head to the office and get some work done too." Oliver frowned. "I'm starting to get jealous of Roma. You always choose her." "I don't want you to go. Wouldn't it be better if we spent time alone together?" I turned to look at him, but he was already signaling to turn around, ready to take me elsewhere. I smiled faintly and looked away. "There will be other chances." "Exactly, we have a whole lifetime together. This time, I won't fight Roma." He dropped me off at a private club before hurrying away in his car. Half an hour later, Zoe sent me another message. "He left you alone again, didn't he?" "See? He told me that every time I cry, he can't help but soften. By the way, I'm pregnant. He told me I should keep the baby. He even said he likes daughters, but I want to give him a son." I did the math. This baby must be a boy. It's a pity, really. The doctor said no intimacy during early pregnancy. I haven't even had the chance to wear the new lingerie he bought me. He's always had a strong appetite, and since you can't satisfy him, he must be really frustrated. I didn't reply. Instead, I took screenshots of all the messages she had sent. As I did, my hands trembled slightly. Maybe it was because Oliver had been so convincing all these years. Or maybe I had been too naive, trusting him blindly. So when this ridiculous, depraved side of him came to light, I still couldn't control my emotions. To think that the tenderness he showed me in bed, which had once moved me so deeply, was completely fake. He had long grown tired of our soft, restrained intimacy. I once thought his restraint was love, but reality had slapped me hard in the face. The dwindling intimacy wasn't out of love or care, but because he no longer enjoyed it and didn't even bother to pretend. Before going home, I called an old mentor. "Laura? Girl, what took you so long to call me?" "Professor, is your research team still looking for people? I'd like to join. Are you sure your health can handle it?" When I graduated, I had wanted to join. My professor had been very excited to have me on the team. But back then, my health was too fragile. The research team traveled everywhere, north, south, even abroad. Conditions were often tough, with makeshift meals and sleeping outdoors as the norm. I just had a medical checkup. The doctor said I'll be fine as long as I'm careful. "And your husband? Is he okay with this?" You know, Professor, if you join us, you'll spend years traveling. And many of our projects are classified. You'll have very little contact with your family. Professor, I've already decided to get a divorce. Did he do something to hurt you? I smiled, swallowing my tears. Yes. He was unfaithful. 10 years of love, are you sure about this? Professor, do you remember what you told me when you decided to get a divorce? When his heart belongs to another, destroy it with fire. Burn it to ashes and let the wind scatter them. My eyes burned red, tears streaming down my face. Professor, you taught me. Of course, I'm just like you. Good, Laura. Then I'll be waiting for you to join us. This was probably the first time since we got married that I had asked Oliver for money. On the other end of the call, he laughed happily. Darling, isn't all my money yours anyway? You can use my card anytime. This is different, I insisted, unusually stubborn. All right. I'll have Pablo transfer it to you right away. Oliver, I'm not taking your money for nothing. I also have a gift for you. In 3 days, go to the reception office at our old high school. Look for the old janitor. Do you remember him? He'll give you something. Oliver laughed at my words. How could I forget? I transferred there in my final year, but in the first 2 years, I must have written you hundreds of love letters. He was the one who helped deliver them all. I smiled too. Yes, so don't forget to pick it up in 3 days. I won't, darling. I'm already excited to see it. Chapter 08. As soon as the money Oliver sent arrived, I anonymously donated it to my mentor's research team. I printed the divorce agreement along with all the screenshots of the messages. I sealed them in an envelope and personally delivered it to the reception of our old high school. The broken pearl necklace and the first ring he ever gave, May melted them with my own hands in a workshop and discarded the remains. Along with them, I burned all the countless love letters he had once written to me. That last morning, I had breakfast with Oliver as usual. And as always, I saw him off when he left for work. Oliver looked apologetic. I was planning to take you to the hot springs today, but I broke my promise again. It's fine. Work is more important, I replied with a faint smile. Go on, don't let your schedule fall behind. Oliver looked at me with a mix of tenderness and guilt. Darling, you're always so understanding, so good to me. These years, I've been so busy with work that I haven't spent enough time with you. I looked at him in silence, but my thoughts drifted. The boy who once warmed my cold hands in the winter morning fog. The man who had knelt before his parents for an entire day, begging for their blessing to marry me. 10 years together, and he was still as young and handsome as ever. His love for me had been real. His betrayal was real too. His guilt and pity were genuine. But so was his restless heart, addicted to the thrill of forbidden love. I knew I could choose to be blind and mute, to remain Mrs. Oliver for the rest of my life. No one could take that title from me. But I no longer wanted to be Mrs. Oliver. I wanted to be Laura again. Suddenly, Oliver stepped forward and hugged me. Darling, I love you so much. Wait for me tonight. Let's have dinner together. I don't know how I managed to force a smile, or how I held back all the unnecessary, redundant questions. Fortunately, his phone rang again, an urgent call demanding his attention. I gently pushed him away. Go on, don't keep them waiting. Reluctantly, he turned and left. But his steps grew faster as he walked away. I smiled faintly, turned around, and went upstairs. As usual, I changed into my gardening clothes. At noon, I had a simple lunch. After a short nap, I got up and changed into an outfit for going out. I packed a bag with all my important documents and belongings. When I came downstairs, the maid smiled and asked, Madam, are you going shopping or for tea? I nodded slightly, with a smile. Yes, and there's no need to prepare dinner tonight. He wouldn't be coming home for dinner. And I would never return. Chapter 09. The driver dropped me off at the club I used to frequent and left. I went down the stairs where the car my professor had arranged was already waiting in the corner. The car had classified plates impossible for ordinary people to trace. Clutching my bag tightly, I crossed the street and got into the vehicle. As the door closed, my phone rang. The name flashing on the screen was Oliver. I didn't hang up, but deep down, I knew this would be the last time I spoke to him. Darling, I'm so ashamed to tell you this. Oliver's voice was full of regret and guilt. I have an important engagement tonight, something I really can't cancel. I won't be able to have dinner with you at home. But I promise I'll come back early tonight to be with you, all right? Darling, please don't be mad. I already sent Pablo to pick up the gift you asked for. You're going to love it when you see it. Holding the phone, I looked out the car window at the seemingly endless street. Beyond the bustling traffic, there was a silent emptiness. That figure I had held in my heart for 10 years, the boy in the blue and white striped school uniform, completely disappeared from my heart in that moment. I knew with absolute certainty that I no longer loved him. Darling, why aren't you saying anything? Are you upset? Oliver's cautious voice came through the phone. Forget it, I'll cancel. I won't go. I'll have dinner with you at home tonight. It's not necessary. It's fine, I replied. Lowering my gaze, I looked at the empty space on my ring finger. Go ahead, take care of your work. I'm having dinner with Roma tonight. Then I'll try to come back as soon as possible, all right? If it gets too late, stay near the office. There's no need to come back. No matter how late it is, I'll come home. I said nothing more. Oliver added a few more words before hurriedly ending the call. I tucked the phone into my bag. As the car swayed gently along the road, I slowly closed my eyes. Chapter 10. Oliver stood by the hallway window, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The sky outside was completely dark. Night had fully fallen. Lara's health had never been good, and her routine was always consistent. At this hour, she should already be asleep. When Zoe came out of the exam room with red, swollen eyes, Oliver had already put out his cigarette. He looked at her and asked coldly, "What did the results say?" "Just a little light bleeding. The doctor recommended staying in bed and resting as much as possible this month." "Then don't go to school. Stay home and rest." "Baby, will you stay with me?" Zoe clung to his arm, her tone full of complaint. Oliver frowned and pulled his arm away. "Didn't I tell you not to call me that? There's no one here. I thought it would be okay. Enough. I'll tell the driver to take you home." "Won't you stay with me?" "I feel really awful today. I'm scared the bleeding might start again. The doctor gave you medication, didn't they? Take it and rest well." Oliver walked straight toward the elevator. "I'm not a doctor. There's no point in me staying." Zoe bit her lip, holding back her tears once again. But afraid of angering Oliver, she suppressed them and followed him to the elevator. Oliver, just as she was about to get into the car, Zoe couldn't hold back any longer and turned to call after him. Oliver glanced at his watch, clearly irritated. "Now what? Will you come tomorrow? The doctor said no sex this month, right?" Oliver raised an eyebrow. "There's no point in seeing you. This month, I need to spend time with my wife. You'd better behave." Filled with rage and sadness, Zoe let the tears stream down her face. Thinking of her pregnancy, Oliver was forced to offer a few words of comfort. "Rest well. I'll come when I have time." Zoe watched as he got into the car and drove away without looking back. The tears on her cheeks grew cold, and her jaw ached from clenching so hard. She couldn't understand it. She was young and beautiful. How could she lose to that sick wife? Every time she thought of it, hatred burned in her bones. And yet she couldn't let go of Oliver or everything he gave her. So she swallowed her anger and endured. Chapter 11. Oliver's car stopped in front of the house. The maid came out to greet him, and he asked as usual, "Has Madam gone to bed?" But as she took his coat, the maid seemed surprised. "Isn't Madam with you?" Oliver froze. "What did you say?" The night was deep, with only the house lights illuminating the scene. "Madam went out this afternoon to shop and have tea. When the driver offered to pick her up in the evening, she said it wasn't necessary because she was dining out with you." The more the maid spoke, the more nervous she became, her voice trembling. "Before leaving this afternoon, Madam told us not to prepare dinner tonight." Suddenly, Oliver stepped forward and grabbed the maid by the collar. "What else did she say? Don't leave out a single word. Tell me everything clearly." The maid paled in fear. "And no, she didn't say anything else. Just that we shouldn't prepare dinner." Oliver released her roughly, pushing her aside. He rushed upstairs, pulling out his phone to call Roma. "Are you with Lara?" "No, we didn't meet today. But this afternoon, Lara said She was having dinner with you tonight. Oliver's voice was incredibly calm. Even he couldn't believe how steady he sounded. But no one saw how the hand holding his phone trembled uncontrollably. Laura called me, Roma admitted. But I had surgery today, so we agreed to meet another day. Oliver didn't even know how the call ended. He dialed the numbers of other friends close to Laura. But everyone said they hadn't been in touch with her today or seen her. Standing in front of the master bedroom, Oliver found the door locked. For a moment, he didn't have the courage to open it. How could he, in his absurd hope, think that Laura, someone so intelligent, knew nothing of his actions? But when had she found out? And how much did she know? Could he even hope for her forgiveness? A wave of panic reminded him of years ago. Back then, they were in university. Through club activities, he had grown close to a girl who had a crush on him, something many noticed. Laura had mentioned it twice, but he hadn't taken it seriously. After all, he loved Laura so much that no other woman could compare. Later, at a club dinner, he drank in place of that girl and walked her back to her dorm. Laura didn't argue with him. Instead, she broke up with him on the spot. His world collapsed in that moment. During their 6-month breakup, he couldn't remember how he survived. It had taken immense effort and countless pleas to convince Laura to give him a second chance. Now, as he opened the bedroom door, his hand trembled violently. The room was completely dark. The bed was perfectly made and unused. Empty. Even the subtle traces of her presence had vanished. Oliver rushed into the room, frantically opening every door he could find. But every room was empty. With shaking hands, he dialed her number. The call connected, but no one answered. Forcing himself to calm down, Oliver lit a cigarette and took a deep drag. He quickly looked up Pablo's number and called. Pablo, send someone to look for her. Start immediately. Investigate. What do you want me to investigate, mister? Oliver. Oliver gave him the address of the club Laura had gone to earlier that day. Find out where she went after leaving club, where she is now, and who she's been in contact with recently. Pablo, check her documents, airports, train stations, bus terminals. Leave no place unchecked. And track her phone location. Let me know the moment you find anything. Chapter 12. Oliver turned and drove straight to the airport. There weren't many places she could go. Aside from her small hometown a few hundred kilometers away, there was the city, where her best friend from university was now married and settled. Oliver tried to calm himself. He kept telling himself that he had always been discreet. He had warned his friends, making sure none of them dared to speak too much in front of her. Zoe wouldn't dare either. So maybe Laura had only heard vague rumors. Maybe it was because he'd been coming home late too often lately, spending too little time with her, breaking a few promises. Maybe she was upset and just wanted to teach him a lesson. Things weren't like before anymore. Now they were married, with all their interests intertwined. Her health wasn't good, and she'd been home recovering. Without him, she was like a bird freed from a gilded cage. She wouldn't survive for long. Oliver kept repeating these thoughts to comfort himself, but they failed to calm his anxiety. His heart pounded furiously the entire way, as if it were being roasted over flames, tormented by uncertainty. At a red light, he dialed her number again. Still no answer. When he neared the airport, Pablo called. Madam left the club around 4 p.m. But all the street footage is blocked, so we couldn't trace her movements. We also checked the airport and train stations, no record of her traveling. Mr. Oliver, it's possible Madam is still in the city. Oliver gripped the steering wheel tightly, exhaling a sudden sigh of relief. Keep looking. No matter what, find her. And her phone location? Have you tracked it? We couldn't. It seems Madam's phone location was deliberately disabled or altered. A loud buzzing filled Oliver's mind, leaving it blank. Pablo continued speaking, but Oliver didn't hear a word. Suddenly, he remembered what she'd said when asking him for money that day, mentioning a gift prepared for him, left at the reception of their old school. She told him to pick it up 3 days later tomorrow. But Oliver couldn't wait another second. Chapter 13. When Oliver sped to the school, it was already past midnight. The reception office lights were off. Without hesitation, he got out of the car and pounded on the door. Suddenly, a cold sensation touched the tip of his nose. Instinctively, Oliver raised his hand and felt the chill of falling snowflakes. It was the season's first snowfall in the capital. It had also been during a first snowfall like this that he and Lara had fallen in love. Standing in the thickening snow, Oliver froze, unable to move for a long moment. It wasn't until the old guard called out to him several times that he snapped back to reality. What they handed him was a simple brown envelope. Holding it felt like clutching burning coals. Instinctively, he wanted to throw it away. Maybe he already knew what was inside. Maybe he just didn't want to face it. But in the end, he opened it. The first thing he saw were the bold words, divorce agreement. On the final page was her handwritten signature and fingerprint. Beneath that were printed chat records. Beyond that, she had left him nothing. And yet, it seemed everything that needed to be said or done was already clear. With just one glance at the chat records, Oliver crumpled the paper in his fist. He offered a cigarette to the old guard, apologizing and thanking him with forced politeness. Then, without hesitation, he drove straight to Zoe's place. When he opened the door, Zoe, still sleepy, lit up with joy and ran to hug him. Oliver raised his hand and slapped her so hard she was stunned. Without a word, his face cold, he struck her again and again. Zoe's face swelled, her lips split, blood dripping. Unable to stand, she collapsed to the floor, clutching her stomach and sobbing for mercy. Oliver looked down at her with icy indifference. Then, without the slightest pity, he kicked her in the abdomen. Zoe screamed in agony, nearly passing out, writhing on the floor holding her belly. Blood gushed between her legs, staining the white carpet red. But Oliver wasn't done. He bent down, grabbed Zoe by the collar, nearly lifting her off the floor. "What do you think you are?" He squeezed her swollen face, so hard it seemed he might dislocate her jaw. His once handsome features were twisted into a terrifying snarl. But his voice remained eerily calm and cold. "A woman who sells herself, daring to bother my wife? I let you keep the child only because I didn't want my wife to suffer. Do you think being pregnant makes you special, Zoe? Who gave you the right to upset my wife and make her angry?" Zoe's vision darkened as waves of pain stabbed her abdomen like twisting knives. She was terrified, filled with regret. Why had she been so greedy? Why had she dared imagine taking the place of Mrs. Oliver? If she had only kept the child quietly, wouldn't she have enjoyed wealth and comfort? "I won't do it again. Oliver, I swear I won't. Please save the baby. The baby is dying. It's too late." Oliver shoved her away with absolute disdain. "Zoe, you'd better pray to the heavens that my wife forgives me and comes home. Because if she doesn't, your life will truly be ruined." "Oliver, this is your child too." Zoe's body convulsed in pain as she lay helpless on the floor, writhing in agony. Her bloodied hands desperately reached out for Oliver. But he stepped back, coldly watching her until she finally lost consciousness from the pain. Only then did he make a call. "Take her to the hospital. Just make sure she doesn't die." Without another glance, Oliver turned and left the room. When he reached the ground floor, a thin layer of snow had already covered the ground. Dressed only in a shirt and trousers, Oliver didn't feel the cold. He dialed Lara's number again, but still no answer. Lowering his gaze, he looked at the wedding ring on his finger. And suddenly, he remembered Lara hadn't worn her wedding ring for days. That day at the hospital, she must have seen everything, heard everything. Yet at that moment, she hadn't confronted him. Not even a single tear. How deeply must he have disappointed her? Oliver didn't dare imagine. Just as he couldn't find the words to describe how he felt at that moment. Chapter 14. I followed my professor to a small town in the northwest, thousands of kilometers away. The conditions were rough, and the schedule was packed. My professor worried my health wouldn't hold up. But after overcoming the initial discomfort, I gradually adapted to the fast-paced life and work. I got a new phone and a different number. However, I kept my old phone on and the number active, though I left it at home and didn't carry it with me. On the old phone, there were calls and messages from Oliver almost every day. But I didn't answer or read any of them. After arriving in the Northwest, I called Roma and briefly explained what had happened with Oliver. Roma was furious, cursing Oliver on the phone for 10 whole minutes. "No wonder you disappeared without a word. Lara, Oliver's going crazy looking for you. He even came to the hospital and cornered me several times. But I really don't know where you went, so it's no use pressuring me. He's also asked almost every friend you were close with. I reminded Roma, if he asks again, just tell him you know nothing. I know, don't worry. I won't let him bother you. But Laura, are you coming back? Of course. I still need to return and finalize the divorce. What if he refuses to sign the divorce papers? I laughed. It doesn't matter. I'll keep moving, won't be able to find me. Let him wear himself out if he wants. Oliver's family won't allow it. He's their only son and heir. After ending the call, some young colleagues came to invite me to dinner. The meal was a fragrant, steaming lamb stew. In Beijing, I had always been careful with my diet because of my poor health. I rarely ate beef or lamb, worried it would be too heavy. But now, adapting to local customs, I felt more energetic than ever. Even my professor joked, "You look much healthier these days. Not like when I first saw you, your face was so pale back then." It's all because I'm happy to be here, eating well and sleeping better, I replied playfully, leaning on her shoulder with my bowl. How old are you, and you still act like this in front of your younger colleagues? My professor teased, pretending to scold me as she placed a big piece of meat in my bowl. Eat it while it's hot. Have some more. I took a big bite of meat, but suddenly felt a lump in my throat and the urge to cry. Not wanting my professor to see my tears, I finished everything in my bowl, swallowing the salty tears that had slipped out. That night, after returning to my place, my old phone wouldn't stop vibrating. For some reason, Oliver was calling non-stop. When it finally stopped, I sent him the first and last message I would ever send. Sign the divorce papers. I will return to finalize the divorce. Other than that, do not contact me again. If you do, I will permanently disable this number. The moment I sent the message, Oliver called again. I still didn't answer. This time, he didn't call again. Instead, after a long pause, he replied with a single word. Okay. Chapter 15. After sending the message, Oliver collapsed on the sofa, covering his face as he laughed silently. His friends sat nearby, exchanging uneasy glances, but no one dared say a word. In recent days, Oliver had been desperately searching for Laura nearly to the point of madness. Though he tried to keep it quiet, word had already spread through his social circle. His mistress, Zoe, wasn't doing much better. It was said she had been taken to the hospital too late, and they couldn't save her uterus. Yet Oliver still refused to forgive her. A few days ago, she was expelled from university, and her parents, ashamed, had cut all ties with her. Now, she lived on the edge, probably praying day and night for Laura to return, hoping that maybe then Oliver would leave her alone. But Laura seemed to have vanished into thin air. There was no trace of her anywhere. Bro, is that message from your wife? Someone finally mustered the courage to ask. Oliver lay on the sofa, eyes closed, silent for a long time. Just when everyone thought he wouldn't answer, he suddenly spoke. She really doesn't love me anymore. The atmosphere froze. That can't be, you've been together for so many years. When she calms down, apologize sincerely. She has a kind heart. She'll forgive you. Oliver simply shook his head. You don't understand her. Before he could say more, the door suddenly burst open with a loud bang against the wall. Everyone jumped. Turning to look, Oliver slowly sat up, squinting his eyes. When he saw who it was, he raised his brows and a mocking smile appeared on his lips. So, it's you, Ryan. Ryan didn't respond or glance at anyone else in the room. He walked straight over to Oliver, kicked the coffee table aside, and grabbed him by the collar. No one expected such strength from someone as slender as Ryan. Half drunk, Oliver was yanked up and slammed hard against the wall. What's this? You want to fight? Oliver sneered, his voice dripping with malice. But before he could finish, Ryan landed a punch squarely on his face. Oliver, 5 years ago I warned you. If you ever mistreated her, I wouldn't forgive you. Blood gushed from Oliver's nose as he turned his head. Unfazed, he wiped it with the back of his hand and swung back hard. The room quickly descended into chaos. Glass bottles shattered, tables and chairs toppled. Half drunk, Oliver was soon at a disadvantage, falling to the floor under Ryan's relentless kicks. Both men were bloodied. Oliver's face was nearly unrecognizable, and Ryan's hand had a deep cut, blood dripping steadily. "And who the hell do you think you are? What happens between my wife and me is none of your business." Propping himself up on one knee against the sofa, Oliver sneered coldly, laughing through bruised lips. Chapter 16. What's this? Heard we had a fight and couldn't wait to take advantage of the opportunity. Such a pity, Ryan. 5 years ago, Laura chose me over you. And 5 years later, nothing's changed. Ryan slowly clenched his bloodied fist, the wound on the back of his hand splitting wider, looking terrifying. But he seemed completely numb to the pain. It was as if a thorn had lodged deep in his heart, piercing deeper and deeper, embedding into his flesh, tormenting him day and night. As an old friend, let me give you some advice. Stop obsessing over another man's wife. Oliver's smile was cruel and malicious. We've been married 3 years. I've slept with her more times than I can count. He fixed his gaze on Ryan's face, savoring every flicker of pain as a twisted pleasure. All rationality had left him. He wanted nothing more than to see Ryan Sefferdo see him break. Her first love, her first kiss, her first night all mine. What can you possibly offer, Ryan? Everyone knows how much Laura loves me. It's because she loves me that she can't tolerate even a hint of betrayal. The more she fights with me, the more it shows how much I matter to her. So, what's the point of you coming here? Do you think you can seize on her vulnerability and win her heart? Keep dreaming, Ryan. To Laura, you've never existed. She'll never love you. Leaning on the sofa, Oliver struggled to his feet. Disheveled as he was, standing before Ryan the man he'd defeated years ago, he still insisted on maintaining his superiority. "I'm not divorcing my wife. Give it up. You'll never have a chance not in this life. Oliver." Ryan looked at him, his gaze cold and resolute as frost. "If I'd known 5 years ago what kind of scum you were, I would have taken her away no matter the cost, even if she hated me or blamed me. And what right do you have to take her from me? Or maybe you're just a masochist who enjoys leftovers?" Suddenly, Ryan raised his bloodied hand and punched him hard in the jaw. His eyes burned red as he glared at Oliver. "I look forward to seeing you get what you deserve." Chapter 17. Oliver had never truly believed in karma. But when he finally traveled thousands of kilometers to that remote, sand-covered town, only to watch Ryan find Laura in the desert before him, suddenly understood. His karma had arrived. Swift, ruthless, and utterly unexpected. He was caught off guard and powerless to resist. The sandstorm howled, darkening the sky and earth. He didn't know if Laura had seen him. All he could do was stand there as Ryan carefully helped the injured Laura into the desert SUV. And when she was too weak to move, Ryan carried her into the vehicle. Oliver followed the car to the hospital. Her professor stopped him at the entrance, but Ryan went in with her to the examination room. The wind had died down, and the swirling sand had settled. Oliver spat out a mouthful of sand and lit a cigarette. One after another, unable to stop. Desperate and anxious, he asked her professor, "Has she been with you all this time?" "Yes." "She works hard and endures a lot." "Her health isn't good." Oliver swallowed the lump in his throat. "Has it been very difficult for her lately?" The professor tilted her chin slightly, looking at him indifferently. "She hasn't been very happy." Oliver's bloodshot eyes were frightening, maybe from the sandstorm. "Professor, do I still have a chance? Will she forgive me? I truly regret it. I know I was wrong." He looked like a helpless, lost child, clinging to the professor's sleeve on the verge of tears. "I don't know," the professor replied calmly, "but I respect Lara's decisions." "Professor, please help me. Won't you?" But the professor shook her head and gently moved his hand aside. "Laura is my most outstanding student. I know her well. In temperament, she's very much like me. In this matter, no one can help you. But Professor, we've been together for 10 years, so what?" The professor's smile was faint but disdainful. "My ex-husband and I were married 15 years. He even knelt and cried, begging me. But a stained man is a stained man, no different from garbage. Oliver, we women are not garbage collectors. If those 10 years together really meant anything to you, then let her go." Chapter 18. The day we finalized our divorce, as I walked out of the civil registry office, Oliver called after me. "Wife," his expression was empty, his whole being drained of energy. Those once passionate and bold eyes were now dull and lifeless. "Call me by my name." "Lara." Oliver stepped closer, stopping in front of me. He looked at me intensely, and for a moment, a faint glimmer of hope seemed to light up his dim eyes. "We can still be friends, right? Like 10 years ago, we started as friends." I shook my head. "No, we can't." "But Lara," I interrupted firmly. "Oliver, 5 years ago, I told you forgiveness doesn't exist in my vocabulary. Back then, I made sacrifices and stepped back for you. And 5 years later, I got what I deserved. Then we don't have to be friends. We can start as strangers. Please, just give me one more chance." "I swear, Oliver, don't you know me by now? In your eyes, I'm just ordinary Lara. But in reality, I'm incredibly stubborn." Oliver suddenly looked at me, eyes wide. "That night you heard everything?" I nodded calmly. "Yes, I heard it all." The faint hope in his eyes shattered like fractured ice. "But Lara, you took your favorite pearl necklace and our wedding ring with you. You can't let go of what we had." He was like a drowning man clutching at one last hope. "But I crushed that illusion. I melted them all at the jewelry workshop. Oliver, if you're looking for our so-called past feelings, you can try the sewers." Without another word, I turned and walked away. But Oliver quickly caught up. "You're going to be with Ryan, aren't you?" "But Lara, all men are the same. He's only pursuing you because he hasn't had you yet. Once he does, he'll make the same mistakes I did, so what?" I looked at him calmly. "After having someone as terrible as you as an ex, what's left to fear? Are you going to marry him?" "I'll think carefully about marriage. But I'm still young. I can have both a career I love and a man I love." "Do you love him?" I smiled. "And what does that have to do with you?" Chapter 19. As I waited for the light to turn green, I saw a car parked at the roadside. In the early spring chill, Ryan was leaning against it, wearing a black jacket. The bare branches above him were budding with tiny yellow shoots. The wind still carried a lingering chill. He stood there quietly, but his gaze kept drifting toward where I was searching for me. And when he finally spotted me, he straightened instantly, just as the sun broke through the clouds. A soft halo of light fell into his eyes. "Lara." He began walking toward me with long, determined strides. When the light turned green and the waiting crowd began to move again, the crosswalk came alive with rhythmic motion. But I remained still. Smiling faintly, I tilted my head, watching him. I saw him walking steadily toward me, like a timeless scene from a movie. "Lara." He finally reached my side, looking at me with nervous eyes. He seemed uneasy, his breathing uneven. The cold wind had tinted his ears a faint red. I looked up at him, and for a moment, I remembered the rebellious boy he had been all those years ago. Suddenly, I understood all those accidental encounters on the way to school hadn't been coincidences. Every fleeting glance, every time our eyes met, had never been an accident. I couldn't imagine how he must have felt back then, watching me devote myself completely to Oliver. How much he must have hidden behind that final look and last smile when I chose Oliver over him. But love is never rational. Back then, Ryan and Oliver were polar opposites. And at that time, as a sensitive, emotional girl, I naturally gravitated toward Oliver, who knew how to make me laugh. It seemed inevitable. I don't regret the past. But now, I've decided to look forward. "Have you been waiting long?" I asked with a smile. "Not long. Just the right amount of time." His hand, hanging loosely by his side, slowly lifted as if wanting to take mine, but hesitated. "Ryan." I said his name and gave a light stomp. The spring wind in Beijing is so cold. "Are you cold?" "Yes, my hands are freezing." I held out my hands, showing him my fingers reddened by the cold. Ryan said nothing but gently took my hands, rubbing them until they warmed. Then, naturally, he slipped my hand into the pocket of his coat. The light changed again. The crowd began to move, vibrant and alive. With his hand holding mine, Ryan led me into the flow of people. Spring had arrived, its warmth steadily growing. It was the perfect season to fall in love. Chapter 20. Oliver. Lara finally married Ryan. Many of their former classmates, friends, and teachers attended the wedding more than had come to Oliver's wedding with her. The wedding wasn't as extravagant or grand as his had been. but it was undeniably warm and full of happiness. Oliver watched the entire wedding through the social media posts of his friends. Everyone around him told him to move on, to stop looking. The couple was deeply in love, their affection, as sweet as honey. Why torture himself by watching? But Oliver couldn't stop. He was like a thief hiding in the shadows, spying. He didn't even know if he was searching for cracks in their happiness or simply pouring salt on his own wounds. He didn't sleep at all that night. He spent hours going through every photo, every video of them together. Laura was still stunningly beautiful. The years of travel, hardships, and working in harsh conditions hadn't worn her down. Instead, she looked more vibrant and healthy than ever, like his wife. He had heard that Ryan and Laura had spent much of those years apart, sometimes losing contact for months at a time. Oliver had secretly hoped that Ryan, being a man, would eventually fail. Because if anyone knew the flaws of men, it was him. He couldn't believe Ryan could stay loyal, without resentment, without a single slip. He even sent people to watch Ryan, hoping to catch a mistake and use it to break them apart. But years passed, and Ryan remained steadfast without a single misstep. Oliver's only solace was knowing that Laura had turned down Ryan's marriage proposals several times. Each time he heard this, he felt a secret joy. But it didn't last long. Although Laura didn't immediately agree to marry Ryan, each time she returned to Beijing, she stayed at Ryan's house. At first, Oliver looked forward to her visits. They gave him a chance to see her from afar and ease his longing. But over time, he began to dread her returns. Because every night, he would dream of Laura and Ryan together in bed. Oliver thought he would never forget those dreams, not even in death. When Laura first moved into Ryan's house, they didn't go out for 3 days. 3 days later, they went to the supermarket together. Ryan looked radiant, like a man who had everything he wanted. And Laura, she glowed with a freshness, like a flower blooming after the rain. Sitting in his car, watching them from a distance, Oliver felt a despair so deep he almost wished for death. In the second year of Laura and Ryan's marriage, she became pregnant. That same year, after a night of heavy drinking, Oliver was brutally attacked by Zoe in a calculated act of revenge. For the past few years, he had lived like a ghost, venting all his rage on Zoe. At first, she endured it, terrified of him. But eventually, she broke and fought back, ready to drag him down with her. He survived the attack, but fate had other plans. While Lara's belly grew with Ryan's child, Oliver received a devastating diagnosis from his doctor. He would spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair and had permanently lost the ability to have children. Oliver thought of Ryan's mocking words. That bastard had been right after all. He had betrayed the woman he loved most, destroyed the only child he would ever have. And now, he had lost Laura forever, with no hope of ever building a family again. It was karma. And the long, desperate years stretching ahead of him would spend them paying for his sins, trapped in the misery of his own making. A punishment with no escape.